Good evening, everyone, and Happy New Year to the Chinese. Or good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Our third Zen and Zazen class. The first time I explained mainly about the posture, and the second time it was more about the mind. Do you have any questions about either? About the posture, about the mind? Anything you would like to ask before you start?
好，大家新年好。然后第一次课我们讲的是关于坐禅的坐姿，然后第二次讲的是就是坐禅的时候头脑里边应该想什么。然后大家有问题吗？可以提。
No questions? Okay, before we start today, hopefully we can sit a little bit longer today than the last first times. I want to explain a little bit about the philosophy of Buddhism and Zen. First of all, starting with Buddhism in general, this is, how can you read this? That would be the Chinese characters Shogyo, Mujo, Shoho, Muga. You read them in Japanese. That would be in English, everything is impermanent. And there is no, I wish, maybe this is easier. Maybe I should. Everything's impermanent and there is no self, or all things are without a permanent self nature, sometimes translated into English. Do we need a Chinese translation for that?
今天我们稍微说一点关于禅的哲学，就是刚才老师是那张纸上面写的，没有什么事情是永恒的，然后所有的事情都是在变化的，就是刚才老师看的那张纸上面写的。
And maybe especially the second part is a little bit, how do you say, complicated or confusing. Everything's impermanent. That's kind of obvious. But what does it mean that there's no self nature? Because obviously I do exist, or I see the computer in front of me, I hear sounds, there's the sensation of this body. So there must be something like a self, obviously.
刚才那张纸上第一句写的是诸法无常，第二句是诸法无我。第一个无常大家好了解、好理解，因为所有事情都是在变化的。怎么理解无我呢？你看我们自己都是存在的，你可以听到，可以说话，然后你是存在，怎么能理解诸法无我？
So one explanation of this teaching that there's no self is, of course, there's a self, but the self is a product of many factors, influences. What in Buddhism is called codependent origination, I think is the English phrase. In Japanese, it's called engi. Everything is the way it is in this moment because of many factors that codepend, they work together, but it's not permanent. Things change when the factors change. And everything is a product of so many different things that we cannot really say, well, this is me, but rather it's like the weather. And if it's a fine day today, that's because of so many things that work together. And tomorrow it can be cloudy and it can be rainy because, well, things are changing according to codependent origination.
因为所有的事情都是在变化的，就像 演戏演员一样，因为你现在的这个状态是所有其他因素有变化之后，然后你有的一个变化，所以很难说。就像天气一样，它可能有的时候阴天下雨，它不是一个原因造成的。你的现在这种状况是因为其他的状况有改变，然后你就有改变，是你就是怎么说，就是你现在这个你不是永恒的，是因为其他的东西改变了才塑造了你。哇，这个好难分析啊。
But today I would like to think of maybe a different meaning that this phrase muga, i.e. no self, could have. So,
然后今天老师想以一个其他的角度来解释一下这句话怎么翻译。
But before I get to that, a little bit about the history of Zen. It's usually said that Bodhidharma brought Zen from India to China in the 6th century, at the start of the 6th century.
在这个之前，老师想先简单的介绍一下历史，就是达摩祖师是从印度把禅带到的，大概在6世纪的时候是从印度把禅带到中国的。
And there's a legend that when Bodhidharma arrived in China, he was invited by the emperor. I think in China you say Emperor Wu of Liang. In Japanese, it's Ryo no Bute. I think Ryo is Yang and Wu, Bute is the emperor of Wu. Anyway, so it's a famous emperor. We don't know if it's a true story, but they say that the emperor invited Bodhidharma, and the emperor obviously at the time in China did a lot for Buddhism. So he built many temples. He allowed a lot of people to ordain as monks, and he also gave a lot of money so that the Buddhist sutras would be translated into Chinese.
然后达摩最开始是由于我们中国的一个有名的皇帝，具体那个名我一会儿查一下啊，他那个发音是日语的发音，我也不知道是哪个皇帝啊，是梁武帝，他一开始他请的那个达摩祖师来的中国，是因为他做了好多贡献，他造了好多庙，然后写了就是翻译了好多关于那个佛教的书，所以他请了达摩到了中国。
So because the emperor had done so many things for Buddhism, the first thing he asked Bodhidharma, what kind of virtue can I expect from these deeds I did for Buddhism?
因为这个皇帝他做了好多的善事，就是为佛教做了好多善事。然后他第一个问题就是问达摩，我可以 virtual 看到
得到的
他可以得到什么？就是德业，就是他可以得到什么德业？好像基本上是这个意思啊，就是因为他做了好多好事儿，关于佛教的一些善事。
And Bodhidharma's answer to that question was, in Japanese you say mukudoku, in English no virtue. There's no virtue.
然后达摩祖师说没有功德，无功德。
And there's two ways to understand that answer. One way, that's the simple way, is, well, of course, it's nice of the emperor that he did a lot of Buddhism, but if you don't practice Buddhism by yourself, if you only give money to others so that they can practice Buddhism, there is no virtue for yourself. You need to practice by yourself. Otherwise, there will be no virtue.
这有2种解答方法，一种是当然是好的，就是这个皇帝他花了好多钱，然后呢就是提供好的条件给别人来学习佛教的知识，来学习佛教，但是他没有自己好好的练习，他没有自己真的在这条路上面学习，所以对他自己来说其实是没有功德的。
But usually in Zen we interpret this mukudoku, no virtue, in a different way. Usually in Zen, we say, even if you practice Zazen, even if you meditate, it's still no virtue. And actually, it's important that when you do Zazen, you don't do it with the idea, I want to gain something, I want to accumulate virtues, but rather you let go of this idea. You don't want to collect points.
然后另一种方法就是我们禅的解读，因为我们在做禅的时候是不应该有得失心的，不应该有目的的，不是为了得到功德而做禅，所以他做这些好事也是不应该是为了得到更多的功德而做这些好的事情，你应该放弃这个想法，因为做禅是没有什么得到什么结果的，就像你做这些好事情一样，也是不会有什么。不能抱以一种得到功德心的这个想法开始。
And probably the emperor was quite surprised when he heard that he could gain no virtue from what he had done. So he asked Bodhidharma the next question, and the next question was, what is the most important, the most holy truth in Buddhism?
然后这个皇帝肯定特别失望，因为他做了这么多好事，原来是没有功德的。然后呢，他又问了第二个问题，那么什么事情是最重要的呢？就是在我们那个做这些事情，什么是最重要的呢
？And Bodhidharma's answer to this question, what is the most holy thing in Buddhism, was this 4 characters. In Japanese, you read it kakunen musho. And usually in English, it's translated as open and wide, there's nothing holy.
然后那个皇帝问什么是最重要，什么是圣洁的，然后是圣洁应该是这样，然后他又说，就刚才他纸上写的那个，没有什么是最高尚的，没有什么是最圣洁的。
I think this first character here, kaku, it means a building that's very wide and very stable, almost maybe like a castle. I could imagine, well, maybe like Osaka Castle, where we do Zazen on Sundays. So you also have a good view. You have a good overview. And you're stable like a mountain. So there's no danger of being attacked from anybody. But there's nothing holy. So that means Zazen takes place outside of this game of this is holy, this is unholy, this is good, this is bad, this is enlightenment, this is in delusion. So you stop trying to catch something that's holy. So in Zazen, we even let go of this idea, this is holy. This is something that gets us closer to enlightenment.
然后他刚才那张纸写豁然无胜，是吧？豁然的豁就是宽广的，就是像城堡一样宽广的地方。然后我们就好像禅，就是它是没有什么圣洁不圣洁、高尚不高尚的。修禅是没有在这个游戏里面的，没有在好与坏，你是不是到达了 samadhi， 就是到达了这个禅定的状态，它不是在这个游戏当中的，它是跳出这个游戏的。
And I could imagine that again, the emperor was quite surprised when he heard that there's nothing holy. He wanted to know what is most holy, and Bodhidharma says there's nothing holy. Just let go of this idea. So finally, he asked him, well, who are you? Who are you that talks in such a way to me? And Bodhidharma said, in Japanese, you say, Fushiki, I don't know. I have no idea. I have no clue.
然后这个皇帝他肯定就是特别的惊讶，为什么我问你什么是最重要，什么是最高尚、最圣洁的？他说没有什么是最高尚、最圣洁的。然后他又问了第3个问题是，那到底你是谁呢？然后那个达摩祖师说，我也不知道我是谁，我不认识我是谁。
And I think this Fushiki, I don't know, gives us a hint what in Buddhism could also be meant with there's no self. Because Bodhidharma, of course, knew his name. He knew that he was an Indian monk who had come to China to spread Buddhism, and he could have told the emperor his story. But none of this would have really answered the question who he really was. Because Bodhidharma, who has a name and who was Indian, who was a monk, that's his role in the game. But the real me, the real self, is not part of the game.
That's hard to translate that. 这个好像就是他是最后说那个皇帝问他你是谁，然后他说我也不知道我是谁。这好像是给我们一个暗示，说这个确实是没有一个谁到底是你，因为真正的这个就是达摩祖师，他是跳出这个游戏的，这个特别难翻译。然后其实是没有谁到底是真正的你，好像是在给我们这个暗示。其实禅里面也是这样讲的，大概其实。
Xuan just said it's difficult to translate, so maybe let me use a different metaphor that's often used. I think sometimes we look at our lives as if it was a movie, and we are the main actor in that movie, and there's also other people around us. And the main actor in the movie, of course, has a name. In my case, it's Muho, is the main actor. And then there's Xuan, and there's Chris, and there's other people in the movie, and we act together. But there is also the question, but who's watching the movie right now? Who is it that's watching the movie? And that person doesn't have a name. Muho has a name, but the me that's aware now doesn't have a name. Or you could even say that this me that has no name is the screen of the movie. I identify with the actor and I know the name of the actor, but who's the screen? The screen has no name. So I could imagine that when Bodhidharma said, I don't know, he was talking about the screen. I'm here, but I don't have a name. There's nothing I can present to you. Of course, I can talk about the actor in the movie, but who's interested in the actor?
OK 刚才我说这个不好翻译，他又跟我解释了一下，就是我们的人生就像是一部电影，然后每个人你自己是这个主角，你是主角的时候，你是知道你的名字的，或者是你的朋友，你像比如那个我家里的人，然后我周围的人，我的朋友，大家都是有名字了，但是是谁在看这个电影呢？是谁在看这个电影？这个人就是这个屏幕是没有名字的。当 Bodhisattva 就是那个达摩祖师说我不知道我是谁的时候，其实他是以这个屏幕的角度，是以谁在看电影这个角度来说的，他是无名的。
When people ask me what Zazen is, I often say it means to take a break from the game. So it means to let the actor be for a while, take a break from acting in the movie and just be the screen, to just return to awareness itself. Normally, in the 24 hours of the day, we have to act. We have to play our role in the game, in the movie. But Zazen gives us the time to just be the screen and allow things just to happen.
所以总有人问那个幕后老师，那到底坐禅是什么的时候呢？他就会说，就是坐禅的时候，其实就是让你，就是从这个角色里面，从这个游戏当中休息一下，从你演的这个电影当中跳出来，变成这个看电影时候这个屏幕，让你只是在这儿，就像看电影一样，那个屏幕一样，不是里面的哪个角色，是从游戏里面跳出来，只是在这儿。休息一下，这就是我们坐禅的时候，他对坐禅的一个解释。
The next sentence here, that's 7 characters. That's a phrase by the 6th Chinese patriarch. His name in Japanese is Enno. I think in Chinese you pronounce it Huineng. Huineng came 6 generations after Bodhidharma. And this phrase in Japanese, you read it muichimotsu, Mujinzo, which means in English, Muichimotsu is nothing. Inside nothing, everything is contained. Everything is contained inside nothing. And I think here the sixth patriarch, Huineng, talks about the screen. The screen is nothing in the movie. If you would ask the actors in the movie, where's the screen? They couldn't answer. And that's just if, for example, I ask Xuan, where's your true self? Or if Xuan-san asks me, I cannot show you. I cannot show you because it's here, but it's not something like this. It contains everything. So that's why I say it's the screen, or it's the here and now where you find yourself when you stop the game. You stop the game and where are you? Well, here. You are here. But this here and now is not a part of the game.
Can I see the paper again? Sorry， 刚才那个老师看的那张纸啊，无一什么，就是那张纸是六祖慧能说的一句话。其实那句话就是好像那句话意思就是所有的一切又在所有的一切当中，就是你很难说，就是比如说问你像他刚才说那个，就是你要从这个游戏当中退出来。好像是在看屏幕一样，那到底这个屏幕在哪儿呢？我们也不知道这个屏幕在哪儿，就好像说你是谁，现在在哪儿，你是看不到的。我们瑜伽里面也经常说到，你的真正的自我，真正的自我是找不到，是看不见的，它在一切当中，然后好像是在所有的地方。就是刚才那个六祖慧能说的那句话。
So I also try to, how do you say, explain this structure or the relationship between this self, which has a name. In my case, that's Muho. This character in Japanese would be the character for me, myself. And Muho is only one out of many actors on the stage. Right now here in the Zoom meeting room, there's 25. And Muho is only one small icon out of 25. But then there's the awareness right now in this moment. And of course, each of us has an awareness, but right now, actually, there's only one. And I think this is maybe what's meant by Muga, the non-self. The non-self doesn't have a name because it's the screen. So what is this non-self, the screen? Well, it's the place where right now you hear Muho talk. And who's aware of that? What is aware of that? That's the non-self.
无我，就是像我们现在上这个课，幕后老师是25个人当中的一个，然后但是这25个人每个人都是有意识的，好像这每个人的意识，你只是知道你自己的意识，好像你又是只是这一个人，然后但是是谁听到幕后老师在说话呢？其实是无我，是没有那个我的那个人在听，好难呀，这个。
That's basically the most important thing I want to talk about today. Maybe another short story that's also related to Bodhidharma. So Bodhidharma had this interview with the emperor, but obviously they didn't really understand each other. And after the interview, Bodhidharma left the capital and went to Shaolin Temple. And they say that he sat there in Zazen for 9 years, facing a wall.
然后就是刚才我们提到那个故事，达摩祖师和刚那个皇帝有过那次对谈之后呢，肯定是就是不是很理想，不是很愉快。然后达摩祖师就离开了皇宫，去了少林寺。传说他在少林寺旁边的那个山上面壁坐禅坐了9年。
And the legend goes that after 9 years, the first Chinese student appeared and asked Bodhidharma, they say it was in the winter, deep in the snow, he asked Bodhidharma for permission to become a student.
然后9年之后，有一个中国的学生，在一个特别寒冷的冬天下大雪的时候，想拜那个达摩祖师为师，然后他希望得到达摩祖师的认可，可以跟他一起修行。
But they say that Bodhidharma ignored him. He didn't even look around.
但是那个达摩祖师根本就没有看他，也没有理他，连看都没有看他一眼。
And according to the legend, the Chinese student, his name was Eka. I don't really know how you pronounce it in Chinese, but the student, his name is Eka, waited there for one whole night, and then in the morning of the next day, he cut off his left arm.
然后这个学生的名字，他就日语的名字是 Eka， 但中文名字我一会儿查一下啊。然后他在那等了一晚上一宿，那个就是那老师都没有理他，达摩祖师都没有理他。然后第二天早上的时候呢，他就把自己的左手砍了下来，把左手给砍了。
So he chopped off his arm to demonstrate that he was really serious. And they say that only when he did that, Bodhidharma looked around and asked, well, what do you want?
刚才那个人的名是大祖慧可，是慧可大师，大祖慧可，他把他的左手给砍了。然后呢，因为那个老师一直不理他嘛，他把手给砍了之后，老师就引起他注意了嘛，老师就问他你到底想要什么？然后
And Eka said, in Japanese, the phrase is Xuan. So he said, my mind is not at peace. My mind is at unrest. I want to find peace of mind. Can you please give me peace of mind?
然后大祖慧可说，那个达摩祖师问他，你到底想要什么？你为什么要跟我学习？然后那个大祖慧可说，不安，我想要找到内心的平静，我特别的不安。
And Bodhidharma said, well, okay, then bring me your mind. Show me your mind.
然后达摩祖师说，那好，那你说你的就是你的意识头脑不安，那你请把你的意识和头脑展示给我，把你意识和头脑带给我。
And the student said, well, wherever I look for it, I cannot find it. I cannot grasp it.
然后那个慧可说，那我怎么才能找到你的意识和头脑呢？我到底在哪才能找到呢？我不可能找到我的意识和头脑。
And Bodhidharma said, well, then your mind is already at peace, isn't it? You already found peace of mind, haven't you?
然后达摩祖师说，那你现在应该是就已经在平静当中了。你现在你的思想和意识就已经平静了。
Usually when we say we have a problem or we don't feel good, we are in pain, we talk about something in the world. We talk about this actor and he has a problem. But when you stop playing the actor and just let the thing be without claiming possession of that thing, like my mind is not at peace, but rather you let go and understand, well, but I'm also the screen. I'm just the screen where the movie happens. Then you might realize that all of these problems aren't really your problems. So you don't have to solve them either.
我们经常会感受痛苦，或者是经历磨难，或者是困难，是因为我们总是在自己那个角色当中，你总是在以那个角色的角色来看，然后看你在这个电影当中，你在这个角色当中有的问题，你没有把自己跳出来，完全在以一个屏幕，以一个置身事外的角度来观看。如果你以一个置身事外的角度看到的是这个屏幕，不是这个角色的话，你会发现其实没有什么是大问题，你的问题其实不用解决就已经解决了。
So you could say that Zazen is not so much a way to solve your problems, but rather in Zazen we stop claiming those problems as our own. We stop saying, oh, there's a problem, I need to solve it, but rather you let these problems be and just sit.
然后我们在坐禅的时候，其实是以一种很接近解决你问题的一个状态，因为你在坐禅的时候呢，没有想到我要解决这个问题，就是让问题在这儿，让问题展示为它本身的样子。就是其实它这是这坐禅解决问题的一个不用解决问题，就让你的问题在这儿，以问题的状态显示出来。
If I continue to talk like this, we again won't have much time to sit. So I will stop here. But if you have questions before we start to sit, please feel free to ask anything you want to ask.
如果老师一直在说，可能我们又没有时间打坐了，所以可能他会故事就先讲到这儿，然后大家有问题的话，可以在坐禅之前提一下，有问题可以提啊。
You can either unmute yourself or ask by chat, or you raise your hand before you unmute yourself. And if you have no questions, we can start right at once. That's also okay. No questions? Perfect. I mean, Zen is not about theory or philosophy, but the most important thing is the practice of just sitting, letting go. So if you have no questions now, I would say let's try sitting 20 minutes today. And if you have questions afterwards, we will have time afterwards as well.
今天做20分钟，然后呢，一会儿有问题做完禅也可以提啊，没关系。
When you swing your upper body from left to right, rather than try to adjust the posture by yourself, you should allow your body to find its own center. Maybe usually you're most active in your brain, but during Zazen, you lower the center, and maybe you find your center more in the tanden area here. It feels like as if you would drop everything.
就是在打坐的时候呢，让你的身体找到重心，重心应该是往下放，就是感觉好像在丹田的位置上，基本上
And the pelvis should be moved a little bit, just a little bit forward, and from there your spine, rather than you stretching it, you allow the spine to, almost like a plant, grow by itself.
你的脊椎应该是挺直的，然后尾椎骨稍微往前倾一点，应该是啊，就是大概其重心往前靠一点。
The back of the neck and the top of your head moves naturally upwards. You lower your eyes a bit, and you breathe naturally with a diaphragm. You don't have to breathe equally in and out. In my case, probably I breathe out much longer than I breathe in. But you don't have to try to make the breath. Just let the breath be natural.
是自然的呼吸，不用像练瑜伽一样，吸气和吐气保持平衡，自然呼吸就好。然后后背那个脖子后侧往上提，头顶往上顶，眼皮下垂，
And while you sit, probably there will be lots of thoughts coming up in your head. That in itself is not a problem. Allow these thoughts, just like birds or just like the sound of cars that pass in front of your house. Just let them pass. So don't make the mistake that you jump into the car and you try to drive those cars. Although even that might happen, that you realize after a couple of minutes, I am carried away by these thoughts. I'm not just letting the cars pass by, I'm actually sitting in the car, I'm driving the car. And if that happens, you realize, oh, I'm inside my thoughts. Then you return to Zazen. And the easiest way to do that is to just be aware of the breath or to be aware of the sounds and the room that you actually experience in this moment.
我们在坐禅的时候会有好多想法升起来，不要就像这些想法就像走过的列车和飞过的鸟儿一样，让它就是从你的头脑中过去，不要想着去控制这辆车，去坐上那辆车，要让它走过去。如果你不小心坐上了你这想法的列车，然后呢，要有意识的下来就好了，关注自己的呼吸，意识到呼吸，意识到周围的声音，还有你现在正在的这个房间。
Okay, but now let's start to sit together.
我们现在开始了啊。
Thank you very much. Maybe we still have a little time if you have questions. So if there's anything you would like to ask, either about today's story of Bodhidharma. Oh, by the way, I remembered the Chinese name. Eka in Japanese is, I think in Chinese it's pronounced Huike. Huike is the guy who chopped off his arm. But yeah, if you have any questions about that or about Zazen in general or anything else you would like to ask, please feel free. I can see that some of you are still sitting. That's okay too. I think Aiko-san was your name. Aiko-san, you have a question, please.
Yes. Hello, Mo. Hello, everyone. I have a question about the true self or non-self. I don't get it. It's like I can see that there is not a fixable self. It is depending on the circumstances. Like you are a teacher, I'm a student, sometimes you are father or you are mother or at work, whatever. And you cannot fix it. But when you ask, or when you say you are the actor, okay, it's a role that I play in this life and is changing all the time. But who is watching this? Well, it's me. It's the same thing. So I think the actor and the watcher in my case is the same. So where is the true self? Or I don't get it.
The actor and the watcher is the same. Well, I would say they are definitely connected. They are definitely connected. It's not that they are two different entities. But on the other hand, for example, I can, imagine that next day, tomorrow, I would wake up and would be a different person. I doubt that would ever happen. But the fact that I can imagine that tomorrow I wake up, like in Kafka's case, he said, I'm a beetle or some kind of insect. I doubt that will ever happen to any one of us. But the fact that I can imagine that I'm still myself, but the actor happens to be a beetle and not Muho anymore, seems to imply that actually the word self, I mean, it's connected. It's connected. I'm connected to the actor, but there's a difference here, isn't it?
Well, in the imagination, if you imagine that you are a beetle tomorrow,
yes,
and you don't think in that moment that I am the beetle, that's a difference. But that's an imagination. But if I wake up tomorrow, if I wake up, I don't know, maybe I die. I don't hope, but so if I wake up, I'm the same. I'm the actor, and I'm doing whatever needs to be done tomorrow. But I'm also the same. I'm the same as today somehow. So I don't see the difference, or I don't know what is the difference between the actor and the watcher. I think there is only this one self, and maybe this is no self, but I don't get it.
Maybe I can use a different example. When you look at the mirror, you're looking at yourself, but still what you see in the mirror and the awareness, that is myself. Those things are not the same, or are they?
Well, there is me looking at the mirror, and there is the mirroring, the body that is looking back, but that's only a picture of this body that is watching, and I am watching at this. But there is no one there that is watching back. It's me recognizing my body in the mirror.
And when you say I am watching, basically you say, well, there's this awareness here. There's this awareness, and you call that yourself. But at the same time, when people ask you, who are you? You answer, I'm Aiko. I'm so and so many years old. But then you're not talking about that awareness. You're talking about something like that picture in the mirror. You're talking about something that's constructed. And that's also you, because in the game you have to identify with that. Yes. But I think it's different to also see the awareness right now in this moment is something that cannot be labeled in this way, although we usually label it in this way. But yeah, I mean, if you're interested in that, we can get back to the point at some point, but I doubt that we get any further than that today. It's an important question.
Thank you.
Stepan also raised his hand. Oh, do you want to translate in Chinese?
Yeah, I want just short summary.
Okay.
刚才那个朋友他提了一个问题，就是真我，有关于真我的问题，到底哪个是你，有没有我这个问题。然后老师刚才解释说，就像卡夫卡吧，那个是卡夫卡的那个变形记，你第二天醒来的时候变成了一个虫子，那你看到你变成了那个是苍蝇吧？好像是，我记得是你变成那个虫子，是不是你？好，就是你和这个虫子其实还是不一样的。然后就像是你在看镜子一样，你和镜子里面那个人不是你啊。然后刚才那人又问，然后老师又解答说，就像别人在问你到底是谁，你跟别人介绍的时候，你会说啊，我叫什么，我今年多大。但是其实你说的那个人不是你现在意识下的这个人，你在说的是那个角色。所以真我和你现在这个我其实是不一样的。好了，大概其这样。
Stepan, do I pronounce the name right?
Yes.
So it's Stepan, not Stefan. Okay.
Stepan.
Okay, please.
I would like to ask you about, sitting without expectation of any gain.
Yes.
I admit I started sitting Zen years ago from bad reasons, with some vision of gain. And if I'm honest, till this day, I'm doing it. Every time I go to sit, I have some bad reason for it. I have some expectation. I learned that they will pass, but there will be something new. So I don't know. I must admit, I sit with some gain. I know it's temporarily. But it's still there, and probably will be there. I don't know.
I mean, it's good that you're honest about it, because there's also some people who say, I just sit without any idea of gain. And actually, I don't sit Zazen das Zazen, which sounds perfect, but often we only tell ourselves this story. I don't expect any gain. So we pretend to sit like Bodhidharma. But in reality, I think you describe it very well. I mean, we would probably never have started with this form of meditation if we wouldn't expect something. We expect something, but it's important that we are aware that we won't get that something, at least not in the form that we expected. That's what I say, quit the game. So you won't win any points inside the game with Zazen. Or maybe you become better at work, and maybe your relationship with the people will improve, but that's not really important. The important thing is that Zazen brings you back into this moment. It brings you out of the game. And so Sawaki Roshi, who used to be my teacher's teacher 4 generations before me, he said famously, Zazen is not good for anything. But at the same time, you could say Zazen is good for everything. Without Zazen, life would be nothing, you could say. But so one reason why I say, and everybody says, you shouldn't expect anything from Zazen is because when you expect something, that's much too small. You should try to, how do you say, return to the point that's the only point that counts. What I call the here and now, what a lot of people call the here and now. And the word has been used so often that actually I wish I would have a better word for it. But still, I think here and now is good enough expression. And usually in our daily lives, we're already always outside of the here and now. And when we expect something, the problem with expecting something is you expect something outside of the here and now. Tomorrow, I want to be a better person. Next year, I want to be enlightened. Next life, I want to be a bodhisattva or whatever. But you're never in the here and now. And Zazen is exactly that. It brings you back into the here and now. And the easiest way is to, well, stop expecting something to get tomorrow and rather live today, sit today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
然后刚才那个朋友他提那个问题，就是他每次在坐禅之前都是有一个期望，希望得到什么。然后刚才老师说，他能够这么诚实的面对，其实是一件特别好的事情，因为如果我们没有期望的话，我们不可能有这个课，也对吧？所以大家肯定是有一个期望，我们才有了这个课。然后那个坐禅其实是为了让你从那个游戏当中跳出来，看到现在，看到正在发生的事情。不要再想明天，明天你会怎么样？明天你会成为达摩？明天你会有禅定？明天你会得到多少成功？其实坐禅就是让你从那个游戏当中跳出来，然后关注现在正在发生的事情。大概其实这个意思啊。他刚才说了好多。
Okay, in Europe it's already past the lunch break. I guess in America, the day has just started. In Japan, it's still a little bit early to go to bed, but my son, maybe you could hear during Zazen, my son is just taking his bath. Probably you would hear when the Ofulo is ready. There's this robot noise that says, yeah, Ofulo is ready. Ofulo is ready. Do you have still questions? Any more questions? Julian, I think it was. Yeah, Julian, please.
Yeah, so I'm going to do that slightly annoying thing of making a comment, but I wondered if it helped with the metaphor of the actor. Mm-hmm. So for 25 years, I've been a Zen shiatsu therapist working with counseling and touch. Mm-hmm. And what the suffering that comes into my therapy room is that gripping onto the role and enjoying being in the drama of the spotlight. And as soon as we work with, some breath and touch, you literally feel it melt away, even just for a second or two. And it's just that trying to move out of the spotlight, isn't it? That's my understanding. Anyway.
Yeah. When I talk about the mind of Zazen, I use this metaphor usually of the sheep and the shepherds. I think 2 weeks ago I used a different metaphor, so I might explain it once more. Usually what happens during Zazen is there's all these thoughts that are like sheep on a meadow, and we think that we need to play the shepherd and control the sheep. But rather than playing the shepherd, I think there's two things we can do. We can watch from the position of the sky. That's kind of like the observer. But then there's this big distance between me and the meadow down there. And the other thing that's maybe a little bit more difficult to explain is trying to be one with the meadow and allow the sheep to just play their game and trample on me if they like and feed on me. But I just let them be without playing the shepherd and without being one of the sheep. And maybe both things are important. Sometimes we have to take a step back and just watch and play the neutral observer. But then also we have to get back into life, but without playing our role, be the whole scenery. Xuan-san, do you want to try to
Yeah.
translate that?
Yeah. 刚才那个朋友提的问题是，他的工作是给别人做按摩，然后呢，他觉得在给大家做按摩的时候呢，好像那个人就一下放松下来了。然后刚才幕后老师说，他这个就是他解释说，就像我们之前上一次课，就是过年以前那节课，老师讲过，我们在坐禅的时候，你会有很多想法，这些想法就像一些羊一样，然后还那个放牧者和羊的故事，我们上次讲了啊，那个放牧者总是想把羊劝起来，或者是把羊赶到一起，其实特别困难。你为什么不你就让小羊在草原上面随便跑，然后你以一个旁观者的角度去看它，或者是你变成他们当中的一员，就躺在地上，然后那些小羊任意在你的身上践踏，不要想去控制这些想法，控制这些羊。然后他说，我们当然很多时候你需要有一个距离，从这个角色当中跳出来，同时我们又要回到你现实的生活当中，就是就是这个要有调节，就是大概是这个意思。
Any other questions? Anything else you would like to ask today? Otherwise, if you like, next Monday, same time, we can meet again. Thank you for joining today, and I will be happy to see you again next Monday if you like. And thank you for Xuan for hosting us and for translating.
Thank you.